At my sister's wedding, she mocked me in her speech. My sister is a single mother, unwanted by anyone. The room laughed. My mom added, "She's a used product." Then the groom stood up and grabbed the mic. The room froze. "You think this is funny, Ellie? Really? In front of all these people?" I hissed, my voice cracking through clenched teeth. "Oh, come on, Jules. Lighten up." She laughed, her glass of champagne trembling in her hand. "You know it's true." "Enough, both of you," Mom interjected, her tone sharp. "Juliana, don't ruin your sister's big day. You should be grateful you were even invited." Grateful? For being humiliated in public? My voice rose before I could stop it. "You called me a used product." The laughter had stopped. Guests shifted awkwardly. The air, warm and thick with tension, sat heavy in my lungs. "My name is Juliana Carter, 26. I'm a single mom to a 3-year-old boy named Levi. I didn't cry easily anymore. Years of biting my tongue around family taught me not to. But today, it stung deeper than usual. I sat there, trembling slightly, not with shame, but something older, something colder. That kind of ache that lives in the stomach, not the heart. The kind that comes from being discarded by the people who raised you. Family introductions. Ellie Carter, 29. The golden child, newly married, always perfect. Her weapon of choice, words masked as jokes. Mom, Denise, 54. Traditionalist, cold, thinks motherhood without a husband is a stain. Dad, Robert, 57. Absent emotionally, just nods, drinks, and leaves things unresolved. Levi, my son, my joy, my strength. "Nama Manur, you always make everything about you," Ellie said, tossing her veil over her shoulder. "I mean, come on, you had a kid with a guy who didn't even stick around. That's not our fault. You used me to co-sign your car and ruin my credit." I snapped. She blinked. "That was 5 years ago. You said you understood." I said I forgave you, but I lived in my car for 3 months after that. Levi was 6 months old. Ellie turned away, pretending to sip her drink. Mom said nothing. Of course she didn't. You think being a mom is a personality trait? You made a mistake and now expect everyone to pat you on the back. I inhaled sharply. You mean when I kept my baby and you wanted me to get rid of him? Don't twist my words, Mom hissed. You told me I'd ruin this family. You told me I was the reason Dad stopped coming to dinners. You pushed me out, not the other way around. Their silence, finally honest. 2 years ago, I left my job when Levi had pneumonia. I had no childcare. Ellie promised to help, then blocked me for weeks. That night, I stood outside my mom's house, soaked in the rain, begging her to let us in. She told me she was busy with church friends. I slept in my car again. Nobody ever asked how I got back on my feet. Nobody noticed. The groom stood up. Ellie, stop. Everyone turned. What you said about Jules? It wasn't a joke. And Denise, you too. That wasn't love. That was cruelty. Ellie frowned. David, what are you... No, you don't get to humiliate someone who gave up everything so we could all look good. He turned to me. Juliana, I know what you did. You paid off her loan. I found the receipts. Gasps. My chest tightened. She told me our wedding was covered by her savings. She lied. You paid the deposit, didn't you? I nodded, barely. You did what? Ellie shrieked. You begged me not to tell him, I said quietly. You said you'd lose him if he found out you were broke. And still, I helped. David's voice broke. You used her. You lied to me. You mocked her. In front of our friends? What does that say about you? Ellie's face cracked. I didn't mean to. But you did. I cut in. You always did. Mom stood, red-faced. This is unnecessary drama. No, this is what truth looks like. I replied, calm now. You taught me silence. I'm done being your lesson. I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting my face like a blessing. My heels clicked against the stone steps as I carried Levi close to my chest. He stirred, but didn't wake. For a moment, I stood there, eyes stinging, not from sadness, but from the sheer relief of being out of that room, that world. Juliana. I turned. It was David. He looked different out here. No stage lights, no champagne sparkle, just a man suddenly awake in the wreckage of someone else's lies. I had no idea, he said, breathless. She told me you didn't want to be involved, that you refused to come to fittings, planning meetings. She said you were bitter. I let out a quiet laugh. Not mocking, just tired. She begged me to stay invisible so her wedding could be perfect. I shrugged. So I did. Paid the deposit, covered her dress alterations, sent Levi to my neighbor for a week so I could take on double shifts. Said David exhaled like someone hit him in the gut. You did all that, and she still mocked you. I nodded. It's not the first time. He looked down at Levi. You protected her more than she ever protected you. Silence, a sacred kind, the kind where truth breathes freely. Thank you, Juliana, for what you did, for how you carried all of that. For a second, I wanted to cry, not because I was broken, but because I finally felt seen. You're the first person who ever said that. I whispered. He nodded. If you ever need anything, I'm here, truly. I smiled gently, shifting Levi in my arms. I think I'm finally learning how to need myself. I didn't cut them off with dramatic declarations or block numbers. I just stopped waiting for them. Stopped waiting for apologies that wouldn't come, for calls that never rang, for love that always arrived too late or in twisted forms. A month later, I signed the lease on a small apartment in a quieter part of town. The walls were thin, the faucet dripped. But it was ours. I found a job at a bookstore with on-site childcare. The hours were long, but the people smiled with their eyes. They asked about Levi. They remembered my name. Ellie never reached out. Not once. Mom texted weeks later. Family fights. We forgive. I stared at the screen for a long time, then replied, we also apologize. I never heard back, but I didn't expect to. And that, too, was healing. Some days I still felt the sting, like when Levi asked why Grandma never visited, or when I saw sisters laughing in the park. But grief doesn't always mean you go back. Sometimes it just means you go forward, carrying both the ache and the freedom. I started therapy. I joined a single moms group online. I learned to say no without guilt and yes without fear. One Saturday, Levi and I lay on a blanket in the park. He pointed at the clouds and giggled, eyes lit up like sunshine. Then he looked at me and said, "Mommy, smile now." Mommy happy. I swallowed the lump in my throat and kissed his forehead. Yeah, baby, Mommy's finally free. Not from pain, but from waiting for love, from people who never knew how to give it. If you were Juliana, would you forgive them? Would you walk away forever? Have you ever been betrayed by your own family? Drop your story in the comments. You are not alone. If this story moved you, hit like number subscribe and share with someone who needs to hear this, because healing begins with truth, and sometimes revenge is just walking away with your head high.